So, as you can see, the question I have up there, this topic's kind of a hard thing to talk about. It's actually hard for me to talk about too because there's a lot of stigma and there's a lot of judgmental behavior behind the whole thing. But I think it's important, especially here in Utah and throughout this country, because it can be a big problem. And how we treat it, I think, perpetuates the problem even more. So how does one stop looking at porn, especially men? How do they stop looking at something like that? Well, if you think about it, throughout the states and throughout Utah here, it's a big issue. A lot of guys struggle with looking at porn. So the question is why? Why do they? A lot of us may tend to think or jump to conclusions thinking that most men that do are evil, or that they're just horny and can't control their urges and all this stuff. Well, I'm here to say I think that's a bunch of BS. Because I've struggled with it in the past. Thankfully, for a long time, I haven't looked at it anymore. I don't need it. I don't want it. However, there's a lot of people still feel like they do. I think it comes down to this simple concept. I think most men struggle with the idea of feeling like they're worth anything better, or they're worth a good woman. Especially because that's a hard thing, because in society right now, men are painted to look like, well, there's this picture painted that it's almost impossible for us to reach or to be this image of what a man is. So a lot of times we feel like we fail at that, and they end up looking at themselves feeling like, well, there's no way I'm ever going to match up. I might as well just give up and settle for something less. Or, I mean, there's multiple different reasons. I'm not saying this is everybody, but I think it's most. And I think the key thing to remember here is shame. There's a lot of shame that goes towards people that end up struggling looking at it, especially men. And when we shame people more, it perpetuates the problem even more. When we start blaming them and pointing fingers at them and calling them evil, guess what? That problem's going to keep perpetuating itself. And I actually work with a couple clients out there, and I go through a process with them that actually has proven to be very helpful, and I want to share it with you. And that is this. What I do is I ask my clients a simple question because I want them to look at porn in a different light. I want to ask them this simple question, and that is, how would you treat porn if it was completely okay? Now, I know some of you may not like that question. I know it's a little bit different than what most people think. But when I ask that question, most of the time I get the response is, well, I would stop hiding. I would stop trying to go behind closed doors with the blinds closed and stop trying to pretend like I am not doing something that I am. Because if you think about it, when we hide something, that usually means we're ashamed of something, right? And when we're ashamed of something, shame has already taken place within us, and we're giving it a place to basically rest its ugly head, and then to make our choices a lot less clear, to make us feel like we have less control. In reality, we start giving more control over to the shame. So what I tell them to do is like, all right, if you're going to stop hiding it, this is what I want you to do for the next 30 days. If porn's an issue, and you believe if it was perfectly okay, you would stop hiding behind closed doors with it, that's what I want you to do. For the next 30 days, I don't want you to hide it anymore. Now, I don't tell them that you're not going out to the streets professing what your issues are, but you're not treating yourself and hiding behind certain barriers to pretend like you're not doing something that you are. So they end up being more open about it. They end up talking about it more with whoever their loved ones are and the ones they care about. And what happens here is over time, within 30 days, because the shame has now got no place for it to rest its head, they start losing interest more because they don't realize they don't really need it. The clarity starts coming back into their mind. And now that their guilt or the shame is no longer controlling and making them feel like they're not worth anything, they start developing more self-worth. They start developing more of a perspective of what really matters to them. And they actually end up dropping away or getting rid of the porn completely, almost completely within 30 days. It's pretty remarkable. So it's basically the answer to all this is you have to take the shame out of it. You have to stop telling people that actually struggle. It's just like with drug addicts. The more you blame them and look at them as being less than everybody else, the more likely they're going to feel that way and continue on that path. So if this is something you're struggling with, or you know someone else there is struggling with, I want you to share this video with them. And at the same time, I challenge you, if it's something you're struggling with, to try that for the next 30 days. Stop hiding whatever it is you're struggling with and start being real about it. And you'd be surprised what can be done in the next 30 days with dropping that bad habit completely. All right, I hope that's helpful. Go ahead and like this video if it was helpful for you, and comment below, and hope you guys have a wonderful day.